To the little girl who feels lost and unseen, I see you. To the little girl who feels unheard and ignored, I hear you. To the little girl who feels lost, God has found you. To the little girl who feels hurt, God can and He will heal you. To the little girl who feels unloved and unworthy, God says you're worthy and you are enough. To the little girl who's been sexually abused, God said it wasn't your fault. To the little girl who feels betrayed, God says you have a friend in me. To the little girl who feels scared, God is with you. Queen, I'm here to tell you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and nothing that you went through has gone wasted. God is using it all. And if you're sitting here asking yourself, how do I know all this, or who am I to sit here and tell you these things? I'm the little girl who's been through and went through what you're going through now. And I just want you to know that God is with you through it all. God bless you, my love. Hey, my loves. Welcome to the Heal Her podcast, where healing is not just a season, but it's a lifestyle. So today we're going to be discussing Jeremiah 1:5. And I wanted to take you ladies through this scripture because I want you to understand how valuable and special you are to God. But I also want you to understand how important your life is and how important you are to this world and how much how great your purpose is in life. Because sometimes we don't understand it and we just need somebody to shed a little light on it. So I want to be the one to shed some light on it and break it down for you a little bit deeper. So I want to start off with the first part of this verse. And it says, "The word of the Lord came to me saying." So in that verse right there, we know that this word is coming from God because it says the word of the Lord came to me. That means God spoke a word. That means God is speaking. So the word is not, we know that this word is not coming from our friends. We know that this word is not coming from our parents. We know that this word is not coming from a teacher. We know that this word is not coming from a boyfriend. We know this word is not coming from our husbands. We know that this word is strictly coming from God. Not man, but God. So I just wanted to point that out. So it says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." Let's take a look at that. When you know somebody, that means you know somebody personally. That means you came across paths with somebody. You spoke to somebody. You had an interaction with somebody. You had an encounter with that person. Like that person in some way, shape, or form, they know your face. They know your name. They know your personality. They know something about you because they know you. But God is speaking in past when He said knew you. So that means when He's saying He knew you before you were in your mother's womb, at some point He had an encounter with you. We may not know it. We may not remember it, but God knows it because God is all knowing and He's all being. So He knows that He had an encounter with us. So that means if He knew us, He spoke a word over us before we even enter our mother's womb. He told us something. He showed us something that lets us know that we were destined for greatness. And I want to prove it to you by going into my next point. It says, "Before you were born, I set you apart." Now, ladies, keep in mind, all of this stuff is happening before you even enter your mother's womb. Like, this is all taking place before you even entered the womb. So he's telling us that he set us apart. So you were always going to be isolated from those friendships. You were always going to be isolated from those groups. You were always going to be isolated from something, because you know why? God had already set you apart. And that's why you always feel awkward, or you feel like you don't belong when you're with people or around people, because God has already set you apart. And I just want to give you a little story and a little testimony to myself. So, when I was with my son's father, he and his friends, like, they will all hang out all the time, do things that they weren't supposed to be doing. And I always try to get in the loop of that. I always try to get in where I fit in with them. But every time I was around them, I always felt like I didn't belong. But I felt like I was the weird one. I felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, what's going on? Like, it was always something about me. Like, it just didn't. And this was before I even knew that I was set apart. This was before my relationship with God. This was just me out in the world, like, just doing the most. And so I used to always wonder, like, why can't I be like them? Like, why don't I fit in? Like, what's wrong with me? But it wasn't that anything was wrong with me. It's just that God had already set me apart. I didn't belong there. So if you're feeling like you're out of place somewhere, it's because you don't belong there. It's because you don't fit in with them. It's because God already set you apart, because he knows that you have a greater calling on your life. And if you're sitting around doing stuff that you shouldn't, or you're sitting in groups that you don't belong, you're not walking in purpose. You're not doing according to his will. So he doesn't want us to be comfortable in, places that we're in, because if we get too comfortable, we're not going to move. We're not going to go where he's calling us to go. We're not going to speak to those who need to be spoken to. Because why? We're too comfortable in situations that we don't belong. So you weren't meant to get comfortable. Have you ever noticed when you're in a position for too long, like, things start to, like, shift, like, like, chaos starts happening, or a situation happen, or some way, shape, or form, you just don't feel comfortable there anymore, or you start to grow out of that position, or the place that you're in. It's because God does not want you to get too comfortable, because if you get too complacent, again, you're not going to do what's necessary to get the job done, because now you're comfortable. So keep that in mind when you're in these friendships and stuff, and you're in places that you shouldn't be in. But I mean, we don't know that we're not supposed to be there. We're just trying to live life and, make friends and stuff like that. Like, I can remember countless times of me being somewhere and being in a group or just out, and never feeling like I don't belong. I remember, like, people used to always tell me, like, I was weird. Like, and I till this day, I do not like that word. But now, like, God is helping me to realize, when someone calls you weird, wear it as a badge of honor. You know why? Because at the end of the day, if they think that you're weird, then you know that you're doing something right, because that means that the world is not taking a liking to you, and we're not supposed to fit into the world. But I do not like that word. I despise that word. Even when my kids say it, I'd be like, don't say that, because it did something to me when I was younger, for people to call me weird, and it made me feel so ashamed of myself. But I mean, now I understand why. So if we continue to go further into this verse, you'll see where it says, I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. That means he already put a calling on our life. He already spoke a word to us about our future. God already has our future mapped out for us. So we tend to stress and try to figure out, what are we going to do? what are we called for? But if you really want to know what's your purpose in life, just open up the Bible and read it, because it'll tell you what your purpose is. And then sit in that time with God. Sit in some alone time with God, and He'll reveal to you what it is that you're called to do. Somebody told me one time, if you want to know what your calling is, just think of what aggravates you the most. And for me, as you guys see, what aggravates me is when kids are being mistreated, when young kids are being mistreated, when, kids get abandoned and go into these foster homes, and now they're just left to fend for themselves. Like, that stuff really gets under my skin. And as y'all know, like, that is why I do this podcast. That is why God has called me to heal her, because we have healing to do from the trauma that we experienced. But I'm getting a little sidetracked, so let me get back into it. He already had us on His mind. And like I was saying in the scripture, it says He appointed us as a prophet. Do you know what a prophet is? I looked it up. It says a prophet is one who declares publicly a message that one believes has come from God. You know how when people say, God told me to tell you, or you see people that say, God dropped in my spirit, and then the word that God gives us, we speak it to other people. You are speaking a prophetic word into someone else's life. You are giving someone the gems that God gave you. And that's not an easy task. God trusted you enough with His word that you would speak it over His people and help them, help someone, guide someone, lead someone. God doesn't just trust anybody with that. That's why I need you ladies to understand how important it is for you to know that you're special and that you are destined for greatness. Because God done already said it in His word. And God can't lie. He's not a man that shall lie. If He speak it, it's going forth. I need you to know that. And then I also read, because I took it a step further as far as, a prophet. It said what I read, it says the Bible defines a prophet as a person who speaks for God or a deity or by divine inspiration. A person chosen to speak for God and to guide the people of Israel. Moses was the greatest of the Old Testament prophets. Like, that is so good. That is so good, ladies. So I really need y'all to understand how important you are to God's vision. He's going to do it, ladies. Trust it. So I'm going to wrap this podcast up by saying Psalms 139:13-14. It says, For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. Ladies, can I speak to you for a minute? You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I don't care who tells you otherwise. So you need to walk in it, and you need to feel it, and you need to be confident. You need to be bold. Because the minute you start walking in your confidence, nobody can tell you anything. Nobody can destroy your character. Nobody can destroy how you feel about yourself. And I'm not saying to be arrogant and boastful. No, I'm just saying walk into who God has called you to be. Be beautiful, because you are. I want to thank you, ladies, for tuning into my podcast. As I said, I drop an episode every Saturday. I just want you ladies to be encouraged and to keep going and to keep pressing, and don't let anyone hold you back. I love you ladies with the love of Christ, and you can reach out to me anytime through email at support@healher.info. You can go to my socials, any one of those, if you want to reach out to me, and they all will be listed in the podcast. But if you don't have time to go through them, I'll just let you know what they are. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and they're all under healher_7. Listen, I will talk to you anytime. I will have time for you to speak with you. If you just want prayer, if you just want a little guidance, a little word, I let God speak to me. And when God speaks to me, I give it to y'all. So please don't hesitate to reach out, because I am here. I am willing. And I'm ready. Be blessed, ladies. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to this podcast. I pray that it has blessed you in the same way that it is blessing me. And I pray that you continue to walk in purpose, on purpose. And if you don't remember anything I said today on this podcast, I want to leave you with this. It's from Isaiah 58:10-11. And if you offer yourself to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted one, then your light will shine in the darkness, and your night will be like noonday. The Lord will always lead you, satisfy you in a parched land, and strengthen your bones. You will be like a watered garden, and like a spring whose water never runs dry. When you walk with God, your water will never run dry. And He will continue to bless you abundantly. But just know overall that your story can help someone else. So please don't be afraid to share it. Let your light shine and allow others to see it. I love you.